Right, so that's a Raspberry Pi 4, not an original Pi. I'm going to talk about the Raspberry Pi, about the whole history of the Raspberry Pi. So starting straight from the original one up to hopefully number 4. So who am I? Well, I'm Billy Corteil, or Bill, if you want to call me that. I'm 14. I've been dragged to events by this person, who's my dad.
Maybe a working one.
So, I've been dragged to events like Maker Fairs, Raspberry Pi Jams like today, and other geeky events for about 7 years, I want to say. And I've been inspired by my dad and other people in the community to enter actually Pi Wars, what's a Raspberry Pi robotics competition, held here in Cambridge, just over there in the building, William Gates building. And I've built about 4 different robots. So this one here, that's Space Babbage. Here's my last year's competitor for Pi Wars. Then we've got over here, that is Scout Ferret, or Space Babbage's new ride. So he's going to be entering this year's Pi Wars, hopefully. Oh, well, he will be. And hopefully he'll do well. So the Raspberry Pi, so what is it? So it's a very small little computer, about credit card size, so not that big, so about that big. And it plugs into a screen, so anything like a monitor like that. And then it can be controlled by a keyboard and a mouse to move it. And the main feature of the Pi is that it can be programmed. So it has many different pins. So it has GPIO pins, and it has the ground and positive pins. So you can make circuits and put it into the actual Pi. And then you can use the circuit and the GPIO pins to control it through Scratch or Python or other languages. So what can a Raspberry Pi be used for? So there's a massive list here. So you can make a robot like that. That's quite cool. And then you can interact with the outside world. So you can make, for example, a weather station. Or a music box. What can be, because you can get different hats for the Pi. What will connect onto the top of the Pi using a GPIO pin. And then you can extract information out of it, and then you could use it to control the music or play sounds. A photo booth, like over there, like outside Brian's one, because you can buy a Raspberry Pi camera. Look, you can fit inside the. You can connect to the Raspberry Pi. And then an internet-connected camera was kind of the same, but it can you can use other libraries in Python to connect to, say, Twitter or another web address. A media center, so there's a hat that you can use to play. You can use to connect to make the Pi TV, or a magic mirror. So you can use, there's other methods of connecting the Pi to things where it can have, there's different like display hats you can get that use LEDs. So there's a technique where you can project onto an old screen and you can make it look like a mirror. And even the new Pi 4 is probably fast enough, and it can probably be used as a home PC. So the Raspberry Pi family, so the Raspberry Pi started with the original Pi, and there's lots of different revolutions on the different versions of the Pi up there. So it starts with the original Pi, what's standard size. Then you go over to where it starts where the A is, what's about half the size. And then there's a little zero, there's the versions of the zeros, what are slightly smaller but slower. So different types of Raspberry Pis. So the first generation of the Pi had 26 GPIO out pins, so a little bit less than the usual Pi at the moment. The following generations of the Pis have had 40 GPIO pins. So there's more GPIO pins on the 4, for example, and the A. And the zeros are, so the slightly smaller ones are still have 40 GPIO pins, and also have, but they're slower because they only have a single core processor. So what do you need? So this is a brief explanation of what you need to get started. So you'll need a power supply. So you can either use the micro USB or USB-C for the USB-C for the Pi 4, or you can use micro USB for any generation below. A Raspberry Pi, so any Pi will run the Raspberry. Just need the right adapters for it. A micro SD card, so one of them, and then you can load something called a software, so you can have Raspberry on it, and then you can run it, and then when you plug it into the Pi, it'll start up. A TV, keyboard and mouse. So you need a keyboard and mouse to input into the Pi and to tell it what to do, because if you haven't got an input, it's just going to sit there without doing anything. A TV or a monitor, so you need to project onto the Pi so you can see what's happening, and then to connect the Pi to the TV or the monitor, you need a HDMI cable, what displays the input into the monitor. So what do you need for a Pi Zero? So you need a mini HDMI to HDMI adapter, and that's if you're using a HDMI lead. And then you need headers, what are these little things here, what you need to solder onto the Pi, so you can use the GPIO pins. And then you need a micro USB to USB, because on the Zero, if you look over here, there's 2 different micro USB ports, and on the normal Pi you have 4 or 2 or 1 USB port. So they've converted it to a micro USB to make it smaller. So you need an adapter from micro USB to USB, and then if you want to connect to the internet, you could use a micro USB to Ethernet network adapter, what extracts all of the so over here, what extracts the Ethernet cable, and then you can buy the Wi-Fi version of the Zero that has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built into it. The new Raspberry Pi 4, it has 2 separate HDMI ports, so you can do dual monitors. The Raspberry Pi also needs the new Pi 4 also needs a USB-C power supply, because it's got the new connection. So the first generation of the Pi has an Ethernet circuit, and it has, if you're going off the first generation, it either has 1 port or 2 ports, and the A has a single socket. So if you're connecting to HDMI, you only need your normal one. Which Raspberry Pi to use? So the Raspberry Pi 4 is very fast, and it can be very good processing power because it has a quad-core processor. So that's the one over here, and it has USB 3.0 on the 2 ports on the blue ports, and then I think it's 2.5 on the other ports on the USB ports, and then the Zero is slightly better for if you want to make a little basic robot. For example, a Tiny, or if you want to make a small project, what a bit more suitable for travel. But at times, because it's only got the one core processor, it can be a little bit slower. And then the Raspberry Pi A Plus is a lot more compact, and then it's faster than the Zero. And that means it can be used for complicated projects, more complicated projects that need more processing power. And for example, it can go inside a Pi Wars robot. So where do you get your Raspberry Pi? So many retailers around the world, they'll sell Raspberry Pis, but these are the main ones. So Pimroni, what I've stolen most of the images from, and also my dad's favourite at the back. And then we get the Pi Hut, what's situated in the UK as well. The Pimroni's in Sheffield. The Pi Hut's in UK near, I believe, somewhere near Witchford? Haverhill, sorry. And then CPC Farnell, what is a big retailer as well, online retailer. And then we have RS as well, what's another retailer. And then the Raspberry Pi store located here in Cambridge in the Grand Arcade. So how do you actually get your Pi to work? So first of all, you need to go to the Pi website to go and download the noobs folder, what is a zip file that has the contents of the noobs folder. And then you'll need to unzip it, and then you can use a program called SD card formatter, what will convert your SD card into a boot, and then it will format it for you. And then you'll need to copy all the file contents over to your all the unzipped contents into the SD card. And then you'll need to start the Raspberry Pi up safely. So the Raspberry Pi doesn't actually have a switch on it or anything. But so first of all, onto the Pi, there's an SD card port, I'm going to say, or insert, that you can put the SD card in, and then it will load all the software onto it. And then you can connect a HDMI cable to it. So if you look at this diagram down here, that is one of the later generations earlier generations of the Pi, and then this is one of the new generations. But you can plug the HDMI port into the ports, and then you can plug it into your monitor or your TV or whatever you're using to display the Pi. Then you'll need to actually plug in the power source to actually start the Pi. And then right in this corner down here, if we look at the middle one, there's two little lights down here, and then they'll turn on if the Pi's working. And then when the Pi first starts to boot, it will show four different it will either have four different Raspberry Pis in the top left, or it will have one, and that is dependent on how many cores you have. So so when you start up the actual Pi, it will show something like this, what's called the Raspbian desktop, what is basically the GUI for the Raspberry Pi. So the graphical user interface. And then a little application will pop up, and it will guide you through how to set up your Raspberry Pi desktop. So command line or GUI. So there's two different types of interfaces inside the Raspberry Pi. You can use the the command line or the GUI. The command line has many advantages, such as it's very productive, what makes it a lot easier and faster to use, and it uses less memory. And the disadvantage of the command line, it means that you need to remember all the commands. So when you enter the command line, it'll have green writing saying Raspberry Pi, and then it'll have like a dollar symbol and then a squiggly line. So you need to, and then you type in your command or your prompt, and then it'll say how, and then it'll run that command. The other interface is called the GUI. What's this one here? And that shows. So this has the normal setup for people, so it can be a lot more intuitive, so people will more recognise that how that works instead of using the command line, because the GUI is used on modern laptops nowadays. And then one disadvantage of the GUI is that it can be a lot more slower, because if you're running a software because it have multiple tabs open, and it'll be trying to run all the programs at once, so it'll be a little bit more slow if you're running an older Raspberry Pi. So useful terminal commands. So sudo halt is how to safely turn your Raspberry Pi off. So you go to the top corner where the Pi symbol is, so up here, and then it has up here there's the symbol for the terminal, and then you can enter in, if you enter in sudo halt, it will stop the Pi. And then ls is to list a file directory, so you can list a file directory by putting, for example, ls home/Raspberry Pi. What's an example of how to list a directory? And then you can use cd to call and open a file directory. So, for example, you can go cd/home/Raspberry Pi/Python games. And then apt is to install, so that's to install new software onto the Raspberry Pi. And then you use copy is to copy two different files, or a file into another directory. So you choose your one file, and then you direct it into the second file, or your second directory. The move is so you can move a file to another file, so a bit like copy, but instead of duplicating it, you're just moving it. Remove is to remove a file name, so you're going to remove a file from somewhere. And mkdir is to make a new directory. So you'll just enter the directory. You'd enter that, and then you'd enter the name, and then what direction you want it to go into. And then cat is to list the contents of a file. So you choose, say, cat home, and then it will list all the contents. So the terminal Raspberry Pi config is a quick area to program, to configure all your settings on the Raspberry Pi, and it can be opened by, if you press sudo Raspberry Pi config, or for short rasp, and then -config, and it's in a very quick and easy format. Useful apps to have on a laptop. So laptops can be very effective for coding and for playing with your Raspberry Pi. So PuTTY is an SSH interface that you can go into your terminal, and then you can use that to so you can go into the command line and you can type through SSH. Real VNC is the same, but instead of going into the command line, you go into the GUI, so it gives you a display of the GUI. PyCharm is a coding interface that shows how to it lets you use it to talk to your Raspberry Pi and change the code inside the Pi. Windows PowerShell is another terminal interface for SSH. Visual Studio Code, what I use, is the same as PyCharm, but it allows you to SSH into the Pi. FileZilla is to copy files or to put a file into another area through SSH, or network scanning tool is to find the IP address of your Pi. So if you want to connect to it through SSH, you can run that and it'll list all the things on your network. So what magazines to get? So these are probably the top 4, I'd say. So some of them, so the one in the top corner is the one called Hello World, what's for teaching younger people and teachers how to code. And then there's the official Raspberry Pi magazine, what's both as well by the Magpie. They're all done by the Magpie. This is mainly focused on the Raspberry Pi, and it has lots of different projects and reviews about stuff within the Raspberry Pi community. Hello World is the one up there, and then the Hackspace one is basically aimed at making in general. So what do people do with making and more projects? And then Wireframe is a gaming magazine, and it can be, sometimes they have projects to do with the Raspberry Pi and how you can turn your Pi into a arcade console, for example. So what books? So for getting started, I'd say the top 3 books are Getting Started by the Dummies by Sean McManus. What's a good book for getting started. Also, the Raspberry Pi Guide by the CEO of Raspberry Pi by Eben Upton. And then Raspberry Pi's Beginner's Guide by Gareth Halfcree. Can't pronounce that properly. And that's sold if you want to buy a kit from the Raspberry Pi store. You can buy a kit and that'll have that in it as well. And then there's the Raspberry Pi official books that are made by the Magpie as well. And there's the Raspberry Pi Essential books. So Raspberry Pi events. What type of events do you have? So you can have, there are many Raspberry Pi jams around the world. And there's some other big events like Pi Wars, what's a international competition, what's run by Mike and Tim here today. And there's also around most of the area, there's a Code Dojo or Code Club that run on a regular basis and are for young eager coders. Questions?
So,
Hiya.
That moves thing then.
Yeah.
Just one thing you need to download, and that
Yeah.
can be used on any of the generations of Pi.
Yes, to the extent. I don't know if it'll run on the... Oh, it will do. Okay. So it will run on the original Pi. So, yep. So on the... If you load that onto your micro SD card, it will plug into the Pi and run.
You don't need to worry about have I got the right version of Noobs. Just there's only one version, and whatever your Pi is.
Yeah. So Noobs gets or Raspberry gets updated quite regularly, and there's been a new update recently. Hiya.
What's the slowest type of Pi?
The slowest, I want to say, probably original. Yeah. Yeah, the first one.
Also, living in a family.
Yeah.
Both teachers are interested. So both parents are teachers.
Yes.
Well, one sort of like that. Well, like living with them, like they use Raspberry Pis regularly, but like, yeah. Do Raspberry Pis relate to Arduino?
So you can connect a Raspberry Pi to an Arduino through Python libraries and other hats. So you could use, yes, you could connect your Raspberry Pi to an Arduino.
You've come across microbits, they're a bit like an Arduino.
Oh, yeah.
From the code you put on them, see if they're powered up, whereas the Raspberry Pis, as Bill's explained, run an operating system where you then run programs on top, like more like a
Yeah.
computer.
Oh yeah?
You entering Pinewood this year?
Yes, mate, I am.
Can you tell us about your robot?
Okay. Right. So my robot is it's based off what is it? A Scottish, no, not Scottish, sorry, I want to say, I don't know, it's based off a 4x4 big scout ferret thing, what was used about in the 1980s and 70s to go around and kill ferrets and scare them away. So that was used and probably disbanded in about 2000 for animal laws. So it has.
So there's a robot that was designed to go and kill ferrets?
It wasn't a robot, it was a vehicle.
Right.
It was a manned vehicle that would go around and. I'd find an image later. It's like it goes around and kills. Ooh.
It's an army scout vehicle.
Yes, it was an army
It's
scout.
called a ferret, it's not a ferret.
It's called a scout ferret.
Yeah.
It's a. You
It's
see
an armored
most.
personnel carrier type thing.
It's a scout. It's a scout car. 4 different tires. You saw them like Northern Ireland coming in.
Yeah.
Iron, that's where it is. I'm just getting a picture up.
Do you think you're going to win?
Yes, hopefully. So that's a scout ferret. So it's a 4x4 big chunky thing.
Mini tank.
Yep.
The
So
robot was based on that.
yeah, so my robot is based off of that, and it has
Ferret stepped onto the track.
yep. So whoops. I'll leave it off. Right. So that's so I'm basing it off this kind of thing. So it's a 4x4 big scout ferret military vehicle, was used around the 1980s. So I saw that and I was like, right. So at the moment it hasn't got the cardboard shell on it, on top of it, but I'm planning to make a cardboard shell outline. And then, as you saw earlier, Space Babbage is hopefully going to sit in the turret, around about up here.
Be your glamorous assistant.
So Babbage is the mascot of the Raspberry Pi. So it's based off a guy called
Babbage.
Charles Babbage, who is one of the first people to invent a computer with Ada Lovelace. So I designed so last year for Pi Wars there's a space theme because it was the celebration of the Apollo 90 years. So I designed that, and I got my nan to knit a spacesuit for it.
So she knitted a spacesuit for a teddy bear?
Yes, basically. There we go. So that's Space Babbage there. And he sits in a, so you know on Mars rovers they have the seats. So he's sitting on top there. I would have brought him today, but for that robot there, it's being designed for, I've asked my nan to knit a, so you know you get the yellow hazmat suits? Yeah, she's designing one of them and knitting it for Space Babbage. So he's going to sit in the turret of the of that robot, and he's going to sit in the turret with hopefully the cardboard shell. So Pi Wars is on the 28th and 29th of March.
See if there's any last questions.
Any last questions? Any eager people?
Are you the folks who did the thing with the balloons and the popping balloons?
Yep.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
That was mainly him. Hiya. Yes, I'm enjoying it very much. Thank you.